Sect Maya saw a shadowy figure moving through the footage they had taken. We were driving in a van, heading to the museum. Yasmin was driving while Rue and Aaron sat beside her. Mike, Colleen, and Anthony were in a different car. It looked like a Toyota Tundra. I couldn't help but feel nervous. The spirits I was used to usually just stood there, wandering around or needing help to move on. But since the eclipse, they had been more active. When we arrived at the museum, we began unpacking our equipment. One thing I was concerned about was the security guard. Mike handed everyone a head cam. He looked at me. Here. With this, Kjeld and Tyla can watch with us. You okay? He asked. I smiled and nodded. Are you okay? I asked him. Sometimes it was hard to read him. It felt like he was carrying something heavy, especially compared to the first time I met him on the train. He smiled back. As Kjeld mentioned before, you can't use your wand. The bracelet has a safeguard to make sure no one accidentally uses their tools outside the school. He grabbed cameras and other devices, something that looked like a spirit box and an EMF reader. How come? I asked, grabbing a camera and a flashlight. Well, he said, when you are sealed, you take an oath. It's binding. It means you are fighting and serving God. He paused. Our God. We started walking inside, but once we entered the building, there was no one to be seen. We stepped into the entrance of the Pesthuis. If things get out of hand, go back to the van, close the door, and contact Kjeld or Tyla, Mike said. Yeah, I'm definitely contacting Tyla, I thought. She's nicer to talk to. Yasmin and Aaron, you two are going to the Ice Age Gallery. Rue and Maya, you stay in the Pesthuis. Mike and I are going to the Age of the Dinosaurs Gallery. And I will walk around the building, Colleen interrupted before simply walking off. I watched as she summoned a bident, which appeared in her hand. Anthony looked at Mike. She's just like you back in the day. Mike remained silent and simply smiled. Ah, you guys are getting the cool areas, Rue complained. Anthony shrugged. That's the point. You two will be in the safest place. I looked around, placing my hand against the wall. The Pesthuis stood across from the museum, connected by a glass bridge. Unlike the bright halls of Naturalis, the old plague hospital felt cold and silent. My heart began to race, and my hands suddenly felt cold. I turned around. Everyone had already left. You coming? Rue asked. I hurried after her. She was holding a device similar to an EMF reader. It detected ghost energy. She handed me another device. It looked like a thermometer gun. What is this? I asked. I kind of forgot the name, she admitted, but it reads heat and cold, and if you look at the screen here, you can sometimes see the form of a spirit. In my mind, I thought I could already see them without all these devices, but I went along with it. We checked the rooms in the Pesthuis, but there was nothing. Try the courtyard, I said quietly. I felt something there. She nodded, and we stepped outside. Her device suddenly reacted. You're right, there's something here. She looked at me. Do you see anything? I looked around and shook my head. Nothing. Rue stood there thinking. Maybe a parabolic microphone. Could be a banshee. We walked back inside. How? Banshees only appear when someone is about to die. Yeah, or it might be a poltergeist or a bean naya. She suddenly stopped. Maya, can you place some cameras in the courtyard to record while I grab the equipment? She pulled 3 cameras and 3 tripods from her bracelet and handed them to me. I'll be right back. I nodded and carried the equipment outside. But the moment I opened the door, it slammed shut. All doors are closed. It's hunting! Maya! Hide! I dropped the equipment and ran as fast as I could to the reception area. I slid under the desk and hid. The ground began to shake. I held my breath. Heavy footsteps echoed through the hall. A low growl followed. Someone or something passed the counter. I know you are here, a deep voice said. I heard it dragging something heavy and metallic across the floor.
Lux in tenebris, domus el, custodi nos, surge lux.
Three, Mr. Miyamoto. 2 kids around my daughter's age woke me with their loud arguing. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. My head throbbed faintly, and the room smelled of dust and old wood. the kind of smell museums carried after closing hours. Slowly, I pushed myself upright on the sofa and watched the two teenagers standing a few meters away. "Excuse me," I said quietly. "What are you two arguing about?" Both of them screamed and jumped back, staring at me as if I had just risen from the dead. "You're alive?" one of the girls asked, her voice trembling. "Yeah," I replied slowly. "I believe so." "I'm sorry, sir," she said quickly. "We didn't mean to be here after closing time." I rubbed my forehead, still trying to remember. The last thing I recalled was wandering through the museum. I had gotten a little too close to one of the dinosaur skeletons. I could have sworn it moved. Then everything went black. We stood there awkwardly for a moment before introducing ourselves. I told them my name was Mr. Miyamoto, and they introduced themselves as Camilla and Matteo. The three of us quietly discussed what we should do next. Matteo wanted to stay and hunt ghosts with the strange device he carried. I insisted it would be wiser to call the police. They refused. Eventually, we agreed to leave quietly without triggering any alarms. We stepped into the hallway. The museum felt different now, empty, cold, silent. As we walked down the corridor, the ground suddenly trembled beneath our feet. "Is that an earthquake?" Camilla asked nervously. Strange, I thought. Earthquakes barely happened in the Netherlands. The lights began to flicker, once, twice. Then darkness swallowed the corridor. Only the dim emergency lights remained, casting long, distorted shadows across the towering dinosaur skeletons that loomed above us like silent giants. Matteo's device suddenly began beeping. He looked at it with a proud smile. Camilla nudged his arm urgently. "Run!" We turned around. And then we saw her. A little girl stood in the middle of the hallway, two ponytails, a small white dress. She gently rocked back and forth on a wooden rocking horse, hugging a worn teddy bear. At first, her face was expressionless. Then slowly, she smiled. For a brief moment, the father inside me saw only a lost child. "Hello, young girl," I said gently. "Why are you here?" "Sir," Camilla whispered urgently beside me. "That's a ghost." The child slowly drifted closer, her smile widened. "Come play with us, sir," she whispered softly. "I am so lonely. Can I be your daughter? Can I be your little sister?" She lifted her small hand toward us. That was when I noticed it. Blood dripping from her fingers, slowly, drop by drop, falling onto the cold museum floor. Camilla grabbed my arm. "Run," and we ran. Behind us, something cracked loudly, and I glanced back. The rocking horse twisted violently, its wooden frame snapping and bending until it transformed into a skeletal demonic horse. The child's eyes turned completely black. The teddy bear ripped open, expanding into a massive demonic beast. Both creatures charged after us. My heart nearly stopped. We turned a corner and froze. A shadow stood in front of us. Then, whoosh! A bident exploded out of the darkness. It shot forward and slammed the demon girl against the wall, pinning her neck between its two deadly prongs. A young woman stepped forward from the shadows. She wore a school uniform. Her eyes were cold. Two dinosaur skeletons moved beside her like obedient guardians. "That symbol," Camilla whispered beside me. "House of El." I looked at her. "That was where my daughter lived." "Yeah," the girl replied calmly. "What's that to you?" Her gaze never left the demon child. "Who are you?" The demon shrieked, thrashing violently. The bident didn't move, not even a millimeter. "Whatever you do," the girl said calmly, that bident was forged in the underworld. She tilted her head slightly. "Only I can move it." Suddenly, the demonic bear lunged at her. The girl moved instantly. She sprinted forward, jumped, spun through the air. Her heels smashed into the beast's skull with terrifying precision. With a flick of her hand, the bident returned to her grasp. She swung it in a powerful arc, lifting the massive creature and throwing it across the room. The beast crashed into the wall beside the demon child. She hurled the bident again, pinning the demon to the wall once more. Then the shadows moved. They rose from the floor like living smoke. They wrapped around the beast like chains. The creature roared in fury, then vanished into darkness. My jaw dropped. I could hardly believe what I was seeing. She looked about the same age as my daughter. How could someone so young be this powerful? Her eyes shifted toward the skeletal horse. "I have a horse almost like you," she said softly. The monster charged. But before it could reach her, the dinosaur skeletons attacked. Bone smashed against bone, jaws snapped shut. The skeletal horse shattered into pieces. The girl walked calmly toward the demon child. She began whispering in ancient Greek. Symbols ignited beneath the demon. A glowing summoning circle appeared on the floor. Greek letters burned into the ground. The demon screamed as the circle dragged her downward. The girl lifted her hand. The bident flew back in her grasp. The demon was pulled screaming into the underworld. Silence. My heart was still racing. "Who are you, young lady?" I asked. She turned toward me. "My name?" Before she could finish, another sound echoed from a nearby room. Slow clapping followed from the darkness. "Well done, Colleen, daughter of Hades." All of us turned toward the shadowy figure. "And who are you, ghost?" Colleen said coldly. "You do realize I can control the dead." The figure laughed, as if I were dead. His voice was deep, oddly comforting. He tilted his head slightly. "You are far too confident in your abilities, child." Then his eyes moved toward me. "Mr. Miyamoto," he said calmly, "I did not expect to find you here tonight." My heart tightened. "How is your daughter, Maya?" "I have been searching for her." My eyes widened. Anger surged through me instantly. What does he want with my daughter? He better stay away from her. Before I could stop myself, I ran toward him. "I will see you again soon," he said softly. His body dissolved into swirling shadows. The darkness twisted, then burst apart into a flock of black ravens, and he disappeared. I-4th, Maya. Once the ghost disappeared, I tried to contact Rue. She told me to stay put. She was going to try to get inside, but my heart told me otherwise. I grabbed the pendulum from my pocket, the one I had hidden. I wanted to try something with a magic word like they had told me before. Crystals are like Wi-Fi routers, they said. I held the pendulum and let it hang above my other hand. Closing my eyes, I took a deep breath. With the Holy Spirit, through and in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, within and by the authority of Yahweh, I pray to you, my Lord, to work with me. I whispered the words and imagined a bright light above me. The pendulum started to glow and slowly lifted on its own. "Please show me where I need to be to help," I asked it. It hovered while I held it, moving slightly before pointing in a direction. I followed it as it gently pulled me forward. Then Colleen contacted me. "Maya, I have people here who apparently know you." "Who?" I wondered. My hand suddenly felt ice cold. As I breathed out, I noticed my breath freezing in the air. That was strange. It was September. It shouldn't be this cold. "A girl named Camila and Mr. Miyamoto," she said. "Dad? What are they doing here?" I asked. "Just get here. We're at the dinosaur sector," Colleen insisted. "Isn't Mike and Anthony there?" "Technically, probably in another room. They aren't here." Then I started hearing strange noises on the other side of the call, like ice forming, similar to the Icemen in the X-Men movies. Suddenly, I saw an old man standing in front of me. "Hello, sir?" He looked familiar. I stared at him for a moment until it finally rang a bell. He was the man who was supposed to have already passed away, the one from the unsolved file I had seen. "Mr. Sabi?" He looked at me with a friendly smile. "Hello, child. How are you doing?" "What are you doing here so late?" he asked in Dutch. I wasn't sure what to do. Part of me wanted to run away, but another part of me wanted to communicate. I noticed the pendulum pointing toward him, which gave me the idea that he needed help. "Sir, I could ask the same thing. You aren't supposed to be here," I told him. Oddly enough, he didn't feel dangerous. "That is true. You see, the last thing I remember was darkness. Then I started hearing a voice, so I followed it. Before I knew it, I was back here in Leiden. I slowly walked toward him and nodded. "I see. By any chance, do you know who this voice was?" He stood still for a moment, thinking deeply. I could see he was really trying to remember. He didn't tell me, but he had a calming voice, although I must admit I was quite scared to follow him. But I did. He offered his hand. "Please, have a walk with me. Being in darkness for I don't know how long, I would love to move around." I gave him an honest smile and walked beside him. I was curious about what happens when you die. The fact that he told me it was darkness seemed strange. Shouldn't he have gone to heaven? I wondered. "Sir?" "Yes, dear?" "Please tell me more about death. You mentioned darkness, but I expected something else." He gave a gentle laugh as we walked through the hallway. So did I. To be honest, I didn't know what to expect. I grew up Orthodox, but later lived my life as an atheist that, if I'm being honest, I nodded as I listened to his story. It was quite true. Many children grow up Christian because of their families. Some, if not many, eventually stop believing in God. So then why did you stop believing in God? I asked out of curiosity. He stopped for a moment in front of me. "Well," he paused. gathering his thoughts. At first, as a child, it was simply following my parents and what they taught me. However, once I grew up, I made some mistakes. Bad things happened, and I prayed to him, but there was no answer. There came a moment in my life when I simply gave up, especially after I became a historian. As a historian, shouldn't there be evidence of a God? Wasn't Jesus real? And what about other societies, the Greeks, the Norse, the Chinese, India? They had their gods. He gave me a warm smile. Yes, but people also did terrible things to please their gods, he said thoughtfully. He walked a bit further, pacing slowly as he thought. There is an idea among scientists that a form of God might exist. However, not necessarily the way the Abrahamic religions describe. This world is created with so many things perfectly balanced that it seems unlikely to be pure chance. For example, if the Earth rotated too fast or too slow, the world would be completely different. If the Earth were closer to the sun, it would be too hot. If it were farther away, it would be too cold for nature to survive. He sighed. What's wrong? I asked, feeling worried. Strangely enough, even though he was technically already dead. My wife, he said softly. She is the sunlight to my darkness. A very religious woman who loved me anyway, beyond my stubbornness and my know-it-all personality. He let out a small laugh. She challenged me once. She said perhaps God is like love. You don't always hear it or truly see it. Instead, you feel it through someone's actions. It isn't always direct, but when you reflect back, you realize how much love that person had for you. Tears slowly formed in his eyes as he thought about his wife. Then a shadow behind him began to grow. It stretched upward, reaching the ceiling, slowly forming a figure with two enormous wings spreading across the entire room. Mr. Sabi, I yelled. In an instant, I ran toward him, acting on impulse. My only thought was to save him from the shadow. Mr. Sabi looked behind him as the darkness began swallowing him. He looked back at me and shouted, "No, child!" When I reached him, I tried to push him away from the shadow, but instead he pushed me. He was strangely strong for an old man. He shoved me aside and I fell to the floor, watching helplessly as the shadow consumed him. There you are. You belong to me, a deep, chilling voice said. The shadow had swallowed him entirely, except for his hand. I could barely hear his voice. Do what you must do, child. Mr. Sabi's words echoed in my mind as I watched him disappear into the darkness. I sat there in horror, feeling as if I failed to save him. A spirit, a man. I should have saved him. Then I heard footsteps behind me. As I told you before, stop caring. I looked behind me, but there was no one there, only darkness and shadows. It reminded me of my life. Even though I have a family, friends, and now this house of El, I still feel alone in the dark. Maybe I belong in the darkness. Maybe I am meant to be alone. Then I noticed the pendulum's light growing brighter, pointing in another direction. Suddenly, I remembered something. I saw my father sitting next to me with my mom when I was 9 years old. I had been upset because I lost a dance competition at school. Both of my parents looked at me. My mom hugged me tightly. My father smiled and said, "Don't see it as losing, but as a win. You gained experience." He chuckled softly. "And whenever you doubt yourself, promise me you'll remember to look within. God is with you. Losing is just training in disguise, preparing you to do better next time." Both of them kissed my forehead as I closed my eyes. Suddenly, I heard Anthony yelling Mike's name. I opened my eyes and gathered my courage before rushing toward them.
Lux in tenebris, domus el, custodi nos, surge lux.